Why do we hate? Interesting question, isn't it? I'm John Rose. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I watched Season 1, Episode 2 the other day of Why We Hate. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch Episode 1 because I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I had to see. I already saw part of the previews, and I saw how they were using this as another opportunity to bombard our brain with a bunch of bullshit, making us believe in absurdities. But anyway, I decided to watch Episode 2 the other day, and sure enough, boy, they are so tricky. The powers that be, the ones behind the curtain, the ones pulling the strings, they control our educational systems. And they know how to trick us and fool us very easily by using the media. I've done several videos on other shows that were on like the Discovery Channel about how they're trying to make it look like there are a bunch of viruses attacking us, and I'll put links down below to those videos to illustrate the point I made in those. But in this video, they start off by having this lady, this professor, Laura Santos, and she starts off by saying, I'm a professor of philosophy at Yale. Ooh, look at me, I'm such a smart person. And I'm really interested in tribalism. But I look at the non-human animals to figure that out. And she goes in to talk about the island of Coya Santiago, where they have over 1,000 free-ranging rhesus monkeys that they've been analyzing. And it's really sad when you see how these poor monkeys have been abused everywhere on this planet, experimenting on them, creating vaccines and bogus drugs for HIV and AIDS, and even doing embryonic stem cell research using partial birth abortions. And it's such a joke, my friends. These poor monkeys. When you look more into depth at what these monkeys are eating, you find out that the monkeys that they were studying, they've been using these monkeys for a long time, for over 70 years, been trying to study these monkeys to try to get some insight into us. But it just goes to show you that if you don't understand the cause of disease, if you don't understand what happens when we alter our food, you won't be able to understand something as simple as studying primates and what they're doing in nature. This lady goes on to say that we want to study them in their natural environment, look at their natural instincts, their natural behavior. And it's not natural behavior. Turns out over 50%, 50.2% of the food these people feed these monkeys on this island is purina monkey chow. And not to mention, these monkeys are supposed to live on the other side of the planet. That's where most of those monkeys are living at. And they've become so domesticated to an extent that quite a few of them live in rural areas, and now 93% of their diet comes from humans. So the point of my video here is, if you don't understand that we are what we eat, and there's a connection between what we eat and our behavior, our illnesses and our ill behaviors, then you won't understand the behavior of something as simple as chimpanzees. She goes on to say these chimpanzees, not chimpanzees, but these rhesus monkeys, they form different groups, and then they fight amongst one another for their food and their water. They can't get along. They don't like each other. Well, why don't they like each other? They try to make it look like this is just their natural instinct. They don't like each other. We all form these groups, and now we don't like each other. It's all part of our nature. And this is another way they lie to us, folks. This is not part of our nature. You take us and put us where we don't belong and feed us food we're not supposed to eat. We're not going to behave the way we're supposed to behave. So why would you want to evaluate why someone's misbehaving and apply that to your misbehaving? Unless you figure out we're both making the same mistake, and none of them are doing that. I said this many times in other videos. If you don't understand the raw food, cooked food connection or perspective, you're missing the boat. This whole point was illustrated with the Dr. Pottinger cat study. I've done several videos on that. I'll put a link down below on at least one of those videos, where Dr. Francis Pottinger did this amazing research back in the 1930s. Went through 900 cats in a 10-year period of time. Pretty much fed them the same foods, except half of them he let them eat it the way they would eat it in nature. unaltered. But the other half, he made them eat it the way we eat it. Cooked it for them. Guess what? The cats that ate the cooked food developed all the same problems that we have. Behavioral problems, illnesses, genetic defects, the same type of problems were created by altering the animal's food. So, what's the take-home message from why we hate using these rhesus monkeys? Well, let's start a whole program off by showing that it's just part of our behavior. It's tribalism. We can't help it. We want to fight the other tribe. And that's important because tribalism leads to nation states, and that leads to world governments and everything. You got to go back before the tribe. You got to go back to the family. You got to go back to the individual. That's why Confucius understood how to have a good government. In order to have a good government, you got to have good families. In order to have good families, you got to have good men. So it goes back to the individual. Each and every one of us plays a role so that we can create the best family that we can create, and then create the best tribe that we can create, and then be able to create the best nation that we can create, and then create the best world that we can create. This woman was saying, we'll never solve these problems unless we understand why we group people into things. Well, you're right. Why do we group people in things? Because we're disconnected. We're not eating those biophotons anymore that makes us feel one with everyone and everything. We're not going to want to fight other groups if we understand the connectedness of things. And there's not a food shortage. But we know what's happening all around the world for the last century in these other countries, where man is encroaching on the primate environments. And now we're seeing behavior in them that's not natural. But they got to do what they have to do in order to survive. They got to keep their food and water supplies intact. So, the powers that be are magicians, folks. They get you to take the first step in the wrong direction, and then you can do everything right and not think you're doing anything wrong because you didn't realize the first step was the wrong direction. And that's what this lady Laura Santos did. Got to study the non-human animals, those primates, those rhesus monkeys. But wait a minute, the rhesus monkeys aren't eating their natural diet. In fact, they even tried to plant their natural diet long ago on that island, and it wouldn't take. So these poor monkeys aren't eating their natural food. And over half of what they're eating is monkey chow. There aren't any biophotons in those. No wonder those poor monkeys, the groups can't get along with one another. It's no different than what Dr. Francis Potter proved. There were behavioral problems with the cats that ate the cooked food. There were role reversals with the cats that ate the cooked foods. The female cats became mean and aggressive and territorial. And all he had to do is put them back on the raw food, and those symptoms disappeared. So, like many subjects, there's a little bit of truth in with a bunch of lies. And in this particular case, we're trying to figure out why we hate one another, not realizing the very simple diet-behavior connection. For those of you who think eating animals doesn't produce a negative behavior, please read The Ethics of Diet by Howard Williams. I mention the book quite frequently because Tolstoy translated that book into Russian, wrote a great 25-page essay called The First Step, explaining to people that we're addicted to the evil way of life. We're a bunch of gluttons. We're like in a 2-story house. The bottom floor is evil. We're addicted to this evil way of life. We're a bunch of gluttons. We have no self-control. The good life is up on the 2nd story. There are stairs or steps that we must take. And they're sequential. You can't skip the steps. You got to address the very first step, which was the point of his essay. 25-page essay, 14,000 words. Watch The First Step to Paradise, a video I did where I played my tape recorder and let you listen to about 600 words or so of that 14,000 word condensed down version of Tolstoy, explaining how that good life is all about our values, and that there's an order of sequence, order of sequence here that we have to follow. It all starts with self-control or self-renunciation. That's the very first step that we must take to get out of the hole we're in. We lack control. We're a bunch of gluttons. All we do is we think about food. It's the wrong food, folks. We don't know how to behave. We got to take back control. And that's when Tolstoy said, you got to take a solid food vacation on water. My approach is let's modify that slightly. Let's take a solid food vacation on juices instead. Doesn't quite work the same way, but it's going to allow you to control the things that are controlling you, that make this hell, this world a hell that we live in, where we torture these poor monkeys to come up with drugs and vaccines and do stem cell research so the powers that be, the ones behind the curtain, can live forever. When you look at what's behind this, folks, that's why they're doing it. Most people don't know that. Most people have no idea that the powers that be have turned our hospitals into temples of sacrifice. It's insane when you think about what's happening, folks. It is literally maddening to understand how the system is working and what they're doing to us. And we've got to wake up to that. And how do you do it? You got to take back control of your life. You can't get to the second level unless you address that issue of self-control, self-renunciation. Most people focus on those higher virtues and they struggle, not realizing that if they just address the first issue of what we eat, they wouldn't be struggling with those other virtues. It would be an automatic. So why do we hate people? Well, I've coined two conditions that can contribute to that. Hypoheliosis, and abnormally low biophoton level, and hypercolonic tension. Remember, that's the serpent Victor Hugo talks about inside of our pipes. We don't have a fast-moving sewage system anymore. It's a slow, stagnant cesspool that seeps back into our body, pollutes our thoughts, pollutes our brain. It's why we struggle. It's why we hate. We've got a tremendous amount of garbage inside of us, and we don't have enough sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells. And yet, some of the greatest people on this planet have those two problems, and yet they can still be a saint. But they're the exception. The vast majority of us aren't doing that well. And some of us are doing so bad that they're the reason why we stay where we are. Why do we hate? Why do we prey upon ourselves, folks? Something's wrong with us. What are we doing? Are we born that way? That's what they want us to believe, don't they? And that's what this episode 2 is trying to say. Tribalism. You can't avoid it. We're just like the other primates. We don't like the other tribes once you belong to a group of people. Once you belong to a tribe. You hate those other people. That's not why we hate. It's not because we're in two different groups. Because we're lacking those biophotons that make us realize we're all one group. That's why we hate. You can't hate someone once you realize they're part of you. That's the secret to self-love right there, folks. What was that great quote by Mother Teresa? If you judge people, you have no time to love them. Do you judge people? Do you hate people? Are you a racist? Oh, folks. Powers that be like to stir the pot. They like to get both sides fighting. Remember, that's their MO, divide and conquer. They remind me of that gal that was on Survivor, won twice, the only one that won twice, Sandra. How did she win? She was just like the powers that be, the ones behind the curtain, creating all these rumors to get everybody to fight against themselves. That's all you have to do. And we're so gullible, we buy into it, don't we? Some people have no idea the media can't be trusted, so they watch TV and they end up hating the Republicans or the Democrats or whatever group you associate with. It's by design. Divide and conquer is part of the MO of the psychopath who swims in chaos, was created out of chaos, and wants the chaos to continue. We don't have as much hatred on this planet as we're led to believe. Because deep down, we still have some biophotons in us. We have so much more in common than we have different. It's absurd to look at small differences and not realize that we have so much more in common. So there's a reason why we hate, there's a reason why we struggle, there's a reason why we prey upon ourselves. It all has to do with eating our species-specific diet in its natural state, in its living state. Because once you kill it, it can no longer have any of those biophotons in there. There are no biophotons left in food that's been altered in those ways. If it's been heated, cooked, irradiated, there's no more biophotons. And that's what we need to be more loving. We don't need to look at the behavior of primates that are eating a diet similar to ours. It's no different than looking at the cats that ate a diet similar to ours. Look at that, the cats are misbehaving. We can learn something from it. Yeah, we can learn something from it. Quit feeding them the wrong food and watch their behavior change. It's so simple. In fact, kids are easy to test that one on, right? Quit feeding them sugar for one day and let's see what happens. There's no connection between diet and behavior. Amazing. I've done some videos on that too. So I'll make a list, or I'll have a pinned comment down below to some related videos that you guys need to see, especially if you're new to my channel. Be sure to watch What is the Healthiest Diet for Humans. I explain the cause of disease in that video. I explain the 4 long-term stages of disease in that video. I explain the 10 body systems that we might need to support in case removing primary causes doesn't work. And one of the best videos that you need to watch is one of my videos uploaded with an interview of Norman Walker. Norman Dodd. The Norman Dodd interview. He was a chief investigator for the Reese Committee back in the 1950s. They studied, or they looked into the tax-exempt corporations here in America. They had the minutes to the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Endowment. And they were very explicit in their minutes saying, we got to control the educational systems. We can't get the current historians to lie about World War I. So we're going to create a new stable of historians that will lie about all the wars in the past, so that history will repeat itself and will perpetuate this hatred amongst us, this divide and conquer mentality. Watch All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. I didn't do that video, but I'll put a link down below. That's another great video for you to watch. And realize who's behind the wars. Who are the Sanders around the world create rumors to get us to fight against one another? How about me? I'm being attacked. People making up rumors saying I'm racist, I'm full of hate. If anybody's ever watched any of my videos, you know that's the last thing in my mind and in my heart. Hate's a powerful word. Racism is a powerful word. If there's any one group of people I'm not really fond of, it's those who worship Satan. They're the ones behind the curtain. They're the ones that want us to continue to suffer. I'm not really happy about those guys. All the rest of us, we're just victims. And yet, they turn around, they play the victim card. They've been doing that for so long. And sure enough, when you watch, if you watch Season 1, Episode 2 of Why We Hate, Tribalism, you're going to see how they're going to lie to us about certain groups of people and how we play the victim card. Some of y'all will know what I'm talking about when you watch that. And this goes back to one of my favorite videos. I'll make sure you guys gotta watch this one. Satan's Secret Weapon. I'll put a link to that one. I explain how the powers that be know that they've put books in our brains and they can push our emotional button. Remember, we have an emotional reaction before we have a chance to intellectualize about things. I call that amygdalosis. Even gave it a piece number in my special teaching tool. And the powers that be rely on that. They want you to have an emotional reaction so you don't intellectualize about things and find out the real truth about these wars. They're all about usury. That's all we need to know about what happened last century when it comes to the wars and historians and why they're lying to us. They don't want us to get to the root of what was behind those wars. When countries break away from the powers that be and don't let them print their money, they're demonized, vilified, and lies are told about them so that you won't look at what they did. And yet you're going to see in this video, here's a good example of tribalism. Real frustrating, folks, to realize that our experts are not our experts. And most people don't know that. So please watch the Norman Dodd interview. Extrapolate that and realize that if they're controlling what our historians learn, they're controlling what doctors learn and nutritionists learn. For the rest of you guys who already found this message on how to be healthy and know that doctors and nutritionists aren't our experts, you should be able to extrapolate that the other way and realize our historians don't know anything either. That professor of psychology from Yale, she didn't know anything, and yet here she is on TV acting like she knows why we hate. And when she doesn't understand anything about diet at all. Doesn't even realize the poor diet these rhesus monkeys are eating is not natural. And then the other research we do all around the world, how much research on these monkeys is done by them eating their natural diet? Zero. They're not doing any research on these monkeys that are eating their natural diet, I guarantee you. So, sit down before a fact like a little child, my friends. You got to empty your cup when it comes to learning new knowledge. I'll link down to that video below also. It's one of my favorite videos. Empty your cup. Sit down before facts. I had this really pathetic person take a little snippet from a sentence and use that to try to make me look bad and racist. He took he took what I said out of context 3 times. I said one sentence. I said, watch the Benjamin Friedman interview and you understand X. And what does he do? He points out X without saying, you got to watch this and then you understand. Plus, the paragraph before that, I set it up. The 9 minutes before that, I set it up. Totally taken out of context. Why? To attack the messenger. When you can't attack the message, you got to attack the messenger. And that's what's done many times. It's hard to find the truth, folks. That's why you got to prove this to yourself. If you haven't taken a solid food vacation, you really don't understand this raw food, cooked food connection. You got to bump up those biophotons to really understand what I'm talking about, to really understand why some people hate people the way they do, and why people will lie just to make money, or why people will lie to keep the status quo the status quo. And that's the biggest problem of all, isn't it? Moses realized that. If you read the Essene teachings from Enoch to the Dead Sea Scrolls, he says, I have 2 main obstacles. How you're trying to help people realize these natural laws that we're not obeying. The ignorant masses, that's a big obstacle. But then we got those arrogant rulers. And sure enough, Dr. Herbert Shelton knew the same thing. He said the biggest obstacle against healing reform is not just ignorance, which we got a lot of. It's the powers that be that control everything, folks. It's the one who teach our nutritionists. It's the ones who teach our doctors. It's the one who teach our historians. It's the one who teach our psychologists. It's the ones who own and control every major sector of human endeavor that are the biggest obstacle we have when it comes to answering simple questions like, why do we hate? The reason why: we're not eating our biophotons. We don't have knowledge of that. We got false knowledge in its place. 12 sources of false knowledge, 7 wellness factors, or 19 obstacles, or 19 reasons why we don't know. The number one source of false knowledge is the darkest of the dark side of our behavior. The ones behind the curtain, pulling the strings, making sure doctors don't know anything about nutrition, and making sure nutritionists don't know anything about disease and nutrition. You've got to become your own doctor. You've got to test an idea as time has come so you can understand that you are the hero in this scenario. The hero is a person who can solve a problem or problems no one else can solve. Well, folks, most of our problems are self-inflicted. That means we're the hero. And once you come to that realization, you realize, oh my gosh, I can join the hero's journey. I can solve my problems. I can go out there and share this message and help other people with their problems. I'm going to put some meaning and purpose in my life. Now I'm going to finally find out what happiness is all about. I'm going to learn how valuable it is to serve other people. And all it takes is to share what you already know. And if you don't know it yet, test an idea as time has come. Go to my seminar, look at my playlist. I'm taking a solid food vacation. I have a 2-hour seminar. Take some notes. Quit calling me and asking me for details. Take some notes, you lazy people out there. Put it in your own words so you can understand this yourself. I want you to put it in your own words. I don't want you to look at a list of what someone tells you. There are several people who have tried to write down what I say, and none of them have done it right. Some have come pretty close, but none of them have done it right. Take your own notes. Put some effort into this. Find out how to do it yourself. I tell you everything you need to know, the basics in that 2-hour seminar. Some things I didn't go into enough detail on, so I have other related videos to back it up, like how do you break the fast. It's all out there. Put forth the effort. Put it in your own words. Come up with your own program. Design it for yourself. Customize it. Watch what is the healthiest diet for humans so you can understand how those 10 body systems work. This is too important for you guys not to put forth the effort to figure out how to do it. Because life is worthless unless we have a quality of life. And right now, we don't. When I reflect back prior to my 7th solid food vacation, I thought my life was pretty good. And yet, 3 months later, I crawled out of a rut I didn't know I was in my whole life on every level. In every area, went up another level. Physically, mentally, emotionally, communally, or spiritually. Everything went up because I flushed out that serpent, that demon, Beelzebub, inside my belly. Bumped up those biophotons. I de-indoctrinated my brain with all that bullshit that's been bombarded in it. I found out that our so-called experts in almost every area of life are not our experts. You've got to become the expert, folks. As Aristotle would say. Believe only your own experience. There is no fact like a fact learned from your own life. That's what you have to do. Realizing, of course, that right now, most of y'all can't trust your own feedback system. It's malfunctioning. That's piece number 5 in my special teaching tool, the ultimate schematic. It's a big problem of knowledge. We built up a tolerance to the crap we were fed early on in life. And now, it's no different than smoking cigarettes. We coughed our heads off the very first few puffs. And now I'm smoking a pack or 2 a day. Not a problem. 20 years later, I'm starting to cough again. It's a latent disease. Most of us have a latent disease. Most of us can't trust our own feedback system. So yes, believe only your own experience with an understanding that I might feel worse before I feel better. I might be having some cleansing reactions. I like to think of getting healthy as climbing a big mountain of health. Most of the time we're going up and up and up, but every now and then we might slide down, but we keep going back up. But you got to do that long enough so that you can finally have that aha moment and realize that almost every problem you had went away simply when you changed your body's terrain. Remember Louis Pasteur's deathbed confession? The microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. We have to look at the body holistically. There are no separate body parts. If you got problems with your eyes, you got problems with the rest of your body. You don't want to focus too much attention on individual problems as much as the whole body. But our body can become damaged. And I explain that in more detail in What is the Healthiest Diet for Humans. You can also watch Healing Secrets Revealed and Medicine is the Ultimate Tool of Control. I usually always put those videos in the description box of my videos to make sure you guys can watch. So if you're new to my channel, I've got close to 800 videos now. I'm not putting them out like I used to. I was putting videos out every day, sometimes 2 and 3 every day. So if you're not getting your fix of your John Rose videos, look back in those videos I did several years ago and use those to keep you motivated. Because knowledge is worthless unless we apply it. We got to clearly see what we're doing wrong, my friends, and make the decision to do something about it. And pretty much everyone knows that's the hardest part of any journey, right? That very first step. Back to Tolstoy, it's all about self-control. Can't get up to the good life unless you address the very first step of these steps that are in sequence. Self-control. Fasting. That's how you overcome gluttony. That's why we hate. We're a bunch of gluttons. Blame it on your food. Don't blame it on biology. It's not part of your DNA. It's not part of your nature. We're loving creatures by nature, folks. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe all the hype about racism. Don't believe this divide and conquer, the blacks against the whites, the old against the youngs, the Muslims against the Christians, or any other dichotomies you want to create. It's an illusion. Bump up those biophotons. Flush out that cesspool. We can get rid of hate on this planet. We can get rid of poverty on this planet. We can get rid of starvation on this planet. We can get rid of war and crime and violence on this planet, and heart disease and cancer and diabetes, and on and on. These are all within our control, folks. Some 100%, some we have limited control, but they are within our control because they all stem back to the very first cause, the altering of our food with fire, which destroys those precious biophotons. Or doesn't destroy them, it just destroys the carrier of them in the food. And if our food is dead, it doesn't have the biophotons, we're not going to feel connected. And we're going to have all these symptoms to tell us something's wrong. That's what all those are for. Illnesses, ill behaviors, part of our feedback system. Feedback system, lifestyle choices, belief system. Our beliefs are wrong. We think cooking is an art. It's a sin. It's the original sin. Cooking our food is the biggest mistake we ever made. And that's the reason why we have so many problems that are within our control, either 100% or limited control. That's a war, crime, and violence. Think about what I'm saying in this video. One simple solution to turn this planet into a loving planet that it should be. We are what we eat. We're not eating the right foods. Our society is a reflection of it. Even the animals all around us are a reflection of us not living the way we should. So it's time to get excited, folks. If you haven't tested an idea's time has come yet, it's time to do so. If you know some friends that are hurting and you haven't talked to them yet, it's time to get excited. Let them know there's a solution if they're ready. But be careful. You can have your bubble bursted pretty easily when you start sharing this message when so many people aren't ready for it. But that's changing day after day after day. The more you guys keep doing this, the more the next person you talk to is going to say, well, wait a second. Why is it I've heard that story 3 times this week already? It's because the hero's journey is growing. Our army is getting bigger. It is an idea's time has come because this is the only way we're going to get people's attention. You can't get results any faster and safer than taking a solid food vacation on juices. It's impossible. Water fast is more cleansing, but then you got to pretty much take a vacation from life. You can't do anything else. And for every day you water fast, you need 1 day to recuperate. So a 3-week water fast is a 6-week vacation from life for most of us. And most of us can't do that. So it's not going to wake us up. The solid food vacation on juice is a whole different story, isn't it, folks? Not only can you keep working in most cases, but you're going to work better. The only time it's difficult has to do with the issues of going to the bathroom as frequently as we do. Some jobs make that a very difficult thing, doesn't it? Or don't they? I know I've talked to you guys before. Sometimes it's hard to break away and just run to the bathroom. Perhaps that's why Buddha had that as one of the 8 things he said you had to do to solve the suffering on this planet. You got to have the right vocation. Can't let your work get in the way of your healing. Hopefully, some of you guys can break away from work that's getting in your way on a temporary basis so you can heal. And I know some of us were so committed to our careers, it's hard to even think about taking that kind of a break. But what are your alternatives, especially if you've been diagnosed with something like cancer, and they're going to want to give you some radiation and chemotherapy and surgery, and you'll be dead within a couple months. It's a no-brainer when you look at it that way. Right? Of course. Well, I meant to go online and look at episode 1 to see what episode 1 was more all about. I'll do that later today, so I may have some more follow-up videos on this video. This might be a video series. I haven't decided yet. And I sure didn't mean to ramble on as long as I have. I'm probably past the half-hour mark by now, I'm guessing, or getting close to it, which is a lot longer than I like for my videos to be. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if you are still with me, there's a good chance you're one of the many heroes out there that are making a difference. And I want to really thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it's up to us, folks, to make a difference. It's a bottom-up solution. There's nothing at the top that's going to trickle down and help save the day. We're the heroes. Don't expect someone to come save the day. It's you who can save the day. You just got to find the courage to go where few have gone, so that you can see what few have seen. And if enough of us can do that, then everyone can see what few have seen. And again, we can put an end to most of the needless suffering on this planet. And that includes hating one another because of some minor difference. This world could be different. It could go back to what it was once before. And every culture on this planet talks about it. We had a golden age a long time ago. But we did something. We lost one of our senses. We stopped eating the biophotons. That allowed us to eat foods we weren't meant to eat. Now we got a food that has a slow bowel transit time. I'll put a link down below for that video. Bowel transit time for our food. Now we got the serpent inside of us. Now we got the serpent blues. We're full of crap. We crap on other people. We judge other people. We hate other people. And it's all because we ourselves are suffering. So the solution is within you. You gotta, again, find the courage to climb that unexplored mountain, to do something you haven't done before, so you can see what you haven't seen before, so you can be motivated to make these changes and do so much easier, because you're going to have a strong enough why. Remember Nietzsche? With a strong enough why, we can, how's that go? With a strong enough why, we can bear almost anyhow. Got to have the reasons. Got a lot of reasons here, folks. We live in a sick world. We're hurting. We're in pain. There's too much hate, not enough love. And that could all change around if we keep playing our role. And you know what's going to happen, folks, if we can go from hate to love, right? We're more than in for a treat.